All right.
All right.
All right. Well, LuAnn, welcome again. After we've experienced a little bit of a technical delay, we're ready for you as the first guest of the new year. So, yeah, it's really great to have you here. So, you can correct me on any of this if I misstate it, but you're the program coordinator for the Park Rapids Downtown Business Association. You do freelance work for the Park Rapids Lakes Area Chamber of Commerce. You're involved in Heartland Arts, and you served as the editor of the Park Rapids Enterprise for over 20 years. Right? Graduate of the Iowa State University in, what, don't tell me. I'm going to say, is that in Ames? Is it in Ames, yes. Iowa? It is in Ames, Iowa. Okay, thank you. Final answer. And I believe you hail from Iowa too, don't you?
Yes.
They say all the prettiest girls are from Iowa. I actually somebody told me that.
Really?
Yeah. When I was on when I was doing work on a floating processor in Alaska when I was in college. Yeah, there was somebody who came up to me and took me aside and said, "Yeah, did you know that all the prettiest girls are from Iowa?" I said, "Oh no, I had never heard. I don't know why he told me that, but you know, like sometimes these like scenes in our life, you can replay them over and over again for no apparent reason. It was just such a random thing. But whenever I hear somebody's from Iowa, I always have to bring that up. You studied journalism there.
Yes.
All right, so let's get right into that. What is your definition of journalism?
Whoa. To say that it's changed over the years is probably a fair assessment. Journalism is, at its best, sharing information with the public so the public can make good decisions, especially regarding elected officials, but also just to build community. Mm-hmm. And it's a mirror of, it should be a mirror of the community. It should be like holding up a mirror and letting the community see itself.
Yeah. What are some ethics that a good journalist would have? What are some things that should be part of a good journalist character?
To try to be fair and balanced in the old-fashioned way of fair and balanced.
Mm-hmm. What is that?
Trying to get both sides of a story. Everybody who, like a witness at a car accident, everybody has a different take on exactly what happened. And so when there's reporting to be done on a live situation, it can be, you can get 6 different opinions about exactly what happened. Yeah. And that's kind of the same in every realm. Everybody, every news story that you could possibly ever do, there's always one of my things I always told myself was everybody has a mother, and if their mother reads this story, are they going to think it's at least fair, even if it's kind of negative? So that was my standard for fairness.
That is a really good litmus test there. I like that. It's you can work with that, you know. It's something that I guess I have always kind of wondered, in more of like in the abstract of when it comes to journalism, because I can think of a couple of examples of situations where the writer of the story, the journalist, has to print something, but like, say for instance, two different people are at the baseball game. They both see a quick play at first base. One of them says that he's safe, and the other one says that he's out, and they're both completely convinced that they're correct. Right?
Correct. Yes.
So the journalistic response to that would be how to report that would be what?
Report both opinions.
Okay. Yeah.
Well, in that case, there would be a final resolution to the question, but
Right.
that doesn't always happen.
Yeah.
As we well know, yeah.
Yeah, right. Because there isn't an umpire there who's going
No.
to make the final determination on a
Correct.
fact, right?
Correct.
Because that fact it is an objectively verifiable fact as to whether he was safe or out. Because either the ball got there before the runner, or the runner got there before the ball.
Correct. Yes, correct. Yeah, black and white is easy. The rest of it is all really hard.
Yeah. And then, you've heard of this movie called Rashomon before? It was a Kurosawa movie where it's basically they show an event, but they show it from the perspective of 6 different observers who all observed the same event, but they all had a different account or retelling, or even actually saw the event in a different way based on their own the culmination of their own experiences as human beings. And so it's interesting that, it's a heavy responsibility as a journalist to try to say, well, I'm going to try to disregard that as much as I can, to empty my own biases out of it, and then just try to present the, as what was it in like Dragnet or something where they say just the facts, ma'am? Or,
Yeah. Although we have learned that there's no such thing as complete objectivity. We all bring our own biases, and
that's absolutely true. Yeah. I think it's impossible to do, I mean, just set aside journalism for a moment, but to do anything in a completely objective way.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because we bring our own life experiences into every situation that we're in.
Yeah. Yes.
We're not robots.
Correct.
But one thing, I don't know how much you've looked at any of these AI things that they have now, but they're pretty convincing in their writing and stuff like that.
I have a story about that.
Okay.
Would you like to
Yes, I'd like to hear it.
hear this? When I was in college, I was my senior year. I was in a work-study program for the computer science department.
Mm-hmm.
I put out their newsletter, and even learned how to, and I can't remember the program we used, but I even learned how to set up the mailing list and everything on the computer. At that time, the computer took up an entire building, and we were on the 3rd floor or something. And there was a professor who worked there, and his office was like in a closet. I mean, he was this kind of little studious looking guy with glasses, and he was a little older. And he came out of there one day and he said, someday computers are going to replace your job because they will be able to write stories.
Mm-hmm.
And he gave the example of like Outdoor Life or Field and Stream or some, how it would be pretty easy to take a format and, for a computer to write a story about fishing, for example.
Yeah.
And was that prophetic? That would have been in I hate to admit how long ago this was. It was in 1964 or 5. No, I mean 8 or 9. 1968 or 1969 that he said.
That was a very prescient observation.
It certainly was.
So because a lot of it is, I think, sort of formulaic, and if you look at it now, I mean, so they say one of the major tests for artificial intelligence is what they call the Turing test, which is very just simply put that you can have a conversation with the intelligence, and if you can't tell whether or not it's a human being or a non-human entity, then it's passed the Turing test, and that shows you that it's intelligent.
Oh.
Yes. It's actually kind of a real elegant way to determine the existence at all, even of artificial intelligence. But I mean, I've seen it like with art where AI generated art is pretty recognizable. I mean, it's kind of cool, but it's sort of formulaic over and over again. And it all has sort of the same look to it. But it's harder to tell with text, I think, because sometimes if you ever go on like the Chat GPT box and just say, write a story about a waterfall or something like that, a waterfall in Idaho or something, and it'll actually write a very sort of well thought out piece about a waterfall in Idaho, and you read it and you're like, well, if I didn't know that this was generated by an AI bot, it would be very difficult to not to come to the conclusion that it was written by a human being. But I do think, though, that there has to be some level of humanity in journalism, right?
Yeah.
I mean, we couldn't have robots reporting on, national affairs or things of that nature too, because, well, I mean, there's also the investigative, I guess, aspect or angle of journalism. It's not just writing the story, but it's also kind of getting to the story.
Correct. Yeah. And that's where I don't think people will be replaced anytime soon, at least. Yeah. Because it's a tremendous amount of work to gather information on a topic that you want to really dive into.
Yeah. Are there any ethical considerations that maybe you learned about when you were at Iowa State about how far you can go to try to get a story, or the kinds of things that you can or cannot do in order to get the information that you're seeking?
Oh boy, I don't necessarily remember from college. I think. I mean, we were always pushing the envelope. It was the 60s,
yeah. Sure.
Of course, yeah. But, well, and we did some kind of outrageous stuff, but our professors were always on our side. Yeah. We were encouraged, but in the real world after college, well, I worked on the student newspaper for three of my 4 years in college. So, but in the real world, things can be a lot different.
Well, yeah, I mean, and especially like sort of like that era, where it's right, it's kind of smack in the middle of the Watergate era too, where Woodward and Bernstein wrote that groundbreaking journalism on the Nixon administration, and then just the use of the confidential informant, and the idea that you may be asking somebody to violate the law in order to get you the information that you need to do the story. It's kind of an interesting ethical question, is about whether how far do you go, or what is permissible in order to get the truth out there.
Yeah, exactly. And which in my mind is pretty seldom, but can you use confidential sources and trust them? We got burned a couple times by people that had their own agenda.
Yeah, sure.
And we didn't get it until it was, the story was out there.
Yeah. You're talking about for the Enterprise.
Yes.
Okay, we'll get to that.
Yeah.
But I guess there's sort of, I've heard of there being protocols and stuff for the use of that sort of anonymous source material, that you'd have to, verify at least 2 or 3 points of what they're saying before you can go with it.
Yeah, that's right.
But I mean, even doing that, I mean, the best, as they say, like the best lies are, just a shade off of the truth, right?
Right.
So
yes, yeah.
Okay, so you served as the editor of the Park Rapids Enterprise here for over 20 years. So what was I think you started in 1986, right? So
no, I was there twice.
Okay.
I started in 1970. I want to say, was it 2 or 3?
So right out of college, basically, right?
Oh no, I did a bunch of other stuff right out of college.
Okay.
All right. I worked for a chain of newspapers in the north suburbs of Chicago.
Oh,
And And then my brother and I moved to California for a while.
Oh, yeah. You told me about that. I remember, those are your... I thought you said we weren't going to mention that. No.
No, it's all right. We had a good time. And then, I moved here in 70. I usually couldn't remember that right off the top. It must have been 72, and then I started at the Enterprise in 73.
Okay. So what brought you to the area? Was it love?
Yeah, it was.
Okay. You don't have to tell the whole story.
I won't. Actually, it was in a time when there was what they called at the time. You'd have to be an old timer maybe to even know what this is all about. But it was the back to the land kind of thing. And there were actually people, quite a few couples that I know, and several of whom still live here, that moved here during that era, and that was kind of why they moved here.
Well, that's really interesting. So, I mean, it wasn't like they didn't have like a set area for people with that same interest, or it's not like a whole bunch of people just bought a whole bunch of acreage or anything like. No, okay.
No. Although we had a co-op kind of commune, they would have called it back in the day.
I wasn't going to say the word because I didn't want to accuse you of being in a hippie commune, LuAnn, but
no, and I never was. But there was one in Hubbard County. I did a story on them.
Really?
Yep.
Where was it?
It was about halfway between here and Bemidji. No, closer to Bemidji than Park Rapids, but it was in Hubbard County.
Yeah.
In fact, somehow my physician knew that I was going there and insisted that I get a TB shot before I went.
Whoa.
Because they also had some people. I think there were people there, included people, not solely that, but from Vietnam.
Oh, okay.
Who had relocated here.
Oh, you mean you're not talking about veterans, you're talking about...
No, I'm talking about refugees.
Actually people from Vietnam, okay.
Yeah.
Well, that's interesting.
I have so many stories.
I'm sure. Okay, so that's... All right, so you were here from 72 and then you came back in, or where did you go? So how did that work?
No, I worked at the paper from 73 to 80... Oh, let me think. 82. And then I quit for a while. Mm-hmm. And I worked as a dispatcher for the sheriff's office.
Oh, okay.
Which back in those days was really... Yeah. I love that job, too.
Uh-huh.
But I got pregnant.
Yeah.
And it was you change shifts all the time so that after the baby was born, our daughter, I couldn't figure that out. You don't get babysitters between midnight and 7 o'clock in the morning. No. So I had to quit, actually, and then I did some freelance work and stuff for a year or two, and then I went back in '86 after our son was born.
Yep.
And then I was at the paper till 2008.
Okay, and then when you went back in '86, you took over as the editor of the paper.
Not right away, because he was still a baby. So I actually went back kind of part time, but the editor moved away, and so then I took her place. You. Yeah.
Okay, so what was the circulation like when you got there?
Oh, in the 70s?
Yeah.
Oh man.
It was just basically
remember.
I mean, was it a morning paper or is it just the format that it is now?
It was. I think it was twice a week already when I started.
Okay.
One of the very few twice a week papers that survived, and yeah, that was a thing. I mean, that we could put out a paper twice a week, and we had a lot of pressure from above to not do that, but we stayed on it.
Yep.
And where was I going with that? Well, anyway, the circulation. I don't remember when I started what it was. When I left, it was significant for a town of not, 4,000
4,000
people at that
people.
time. Our circulation was I want to say 5,000.
Yeah.
Yeah. Those
Okay.
were the glory days of newspapers,
Yeah.
as it turns out. We didn't know it at the time.
Yeah. So you kind of got out before everything started to kind of give way to the rising tide of the internet.
Yes. We had started, and I had been very outspoken about why newspapers would give away what they can sell. They started wanting to put everything we did online for free, and I said, that makes no sense to me, but
Yeah.
newspapers all over the country were doing that.
Right. Yeah, I mean, and then it's sort of, I think the subscription model kind of replaced that now, but by that point, probably the damage to the finances of the papers had
been done.
Had already been done, right?
That and classified ads were
A big source of
a
revenue.
big source of revenue, and they just kind of evaporated with web everything. Yeah.
It's because, I mean, the newspaper was sort of, in those days, the central focus of the town, or like supposedly, I mean, just sort of the document that everybody would look to for information.
Sure.
Single
Births,
source.
deaths, marriages,
Yeah.
the whole, everything.
Well, so you think about it, I mean, probably leading up to at least the middle of the 90s, if you didn't read about it in the newspaper, you'd have to see it on television. And if there wasn't any local daily broadcast, or, I suppose there was the radio too, the
Correct.
KDKK and the Delahunts and all that. But for the in-depth story, you'd have to look at the newspaper.
Yeah.
So they kind of, that it was needed, it was necessary to have that. And the dawn of the internet, I'm sure that the reaction was a little slow. Were there some people in the industry who were sort of trying to deny it, or trying to kind of turn a blind eye to it? And what do they say? They whistle through the graveyard?
No, I think they realized it could be a good thing.
Mm-hmm.
It was just the business model part that they got wrong, is what happened.
Mm-hmm.
But as far as crowdsourcing information, as it came to be called, it was wonderful. I mean, people could email their photos and we could put them in the newspaper.
Yeah.
Wow, we didn't have to take all of them.
Yeah,
It was wonderful. So,
but it probably caused at least, I mean, some scaling back of the personnel too involved in the newspaper, right?
oh, sure, the Enterprise used to have 15 employees, and now they have very few. And
Yeah.
most of the work is shipped to another community.
Right. Yeah. Because it's owned now by is it called Focus, or what's the Forum yeah.
Communications.
Forum Community when did that takeover occur?
Oh, that occurred. Well, they owned it when I went back to work in 1986.
Oh, they did. Okay.
It had sold.
Mm-hmm.
It had sold
But
twice. Actually, it sold. That was the third time since I had started there.
Oh, it had it up to that point been independently owned.
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah. All right. So, kind of a fun question, but going back from the entire time that you worked there, right? So let's just pick the decades, or maybe, well, let's just start with this. What have been the biggest stories that, or the most, I don't know, the most interesting stories that have come out, that have been reported by the Park Rapids Enterprise during your tenure there?
Anticipating to ask a question like that. I think actually one of the biggest changes in Park Rapids came when they realized that irrigating crops could increase the production by a significant amount, and then started growing potatoes and built the potato plant, which has gone through several ownerships until Lamb Weston owns it now. But and off it, run off it. But it was really pretty huge excitement about the fact that we would have so many new jobs.
Yeah.
And a larger employer, more stable year round, because it was such a seasonal economy, and it kind of still is. But the prospect that there would be year round good jobs,
in the area,
was pretty exciting and pretty significant.
When was that?
And that would have been in that would have been in the 80s, I think. Yeah, okay. Yeah.
So up to then it must have just been sort of privately owned farmland and things like
yes.
that. Okay.
Yep.
And so sort of the commercial farming came in at that point when they had to,
when they started irrigating. John Ikes was our county extension agent, and in that era, and he really was a visionary. And he was the one encouraging farmers, or a couple of them anyway, Al Monaco and then his son Larry, to try irrigating their crops, and because we had real sandy soil and made sense. And so that's how that kind of developed. But he also told me one time, you just wait. He said, in not that long of a time, the highway, you'll see houses all along the highway between here and Nevis. And oh my goodness, when you think about what used to be there and all the new houses and all the development that's taken place just between Park Rapids and Nevis, let alone everywhere else, I mean, he was real vision. He would come up with things like that, and he was right. Yeah. He saw it coming.
Yeah. So that's sort of on the in the realm of business and enterprise and things like that. What about let's just go down the sort of the traditional categories here. So what about like on the crime beat? What was the biggest story that was covered by the Park Rapids Enterprise during your tenure there?
Oh, well, we had numerous murders, you know, all of them tragic, of course.
As they all are, right? Mm-hmm.
One of them that stood out in my mind was because it kind of was symbolic of a trend. A fellow killed, how are they related to him? Family, anyway, up in the northern part of the county. And it was all over. And he had a good job done in the cities, and people down there that worked with him said he was a terrific guy. But it was a fight over land. And that was, not that long ago. It would have been in the early 2000s, if I remember right. It was just kind of made you recognize that property and land ownership was getting to be a thing that people coveted if they couldn't afford it, and it just was kind of a turning point in my head, at least. I don't know how much other people recognize that, but it was a thing. It was just.
And I think that exists even today, at least in my experience. I think you see a lot of the boundary disputes and things like that, and it's very there's a very fine line between a civil dispute, a disagreement between neighbors, and something that can escalate to even murder. And it's like it's tragedy, because I'm sure the person that had to spend the rest of his life in jail over that probably would have just deeded the land over to the other guy, and rather than in hindsight, but it's just these crimes of passion that occur.
That's exactly what happened there.
Any big sports stories that stick out in your mind? State championships or things like that?
Oh, Park Rapids went to the state football championships one year when Andy McCarty was the coach, but I was never the sports editor, so I was like not anything that I paid that much. I was more into covering speech drama.
Yeah. At the high
school, and we had for a couple decades we always took first place at state speech contests.
Really?
And
why was that?
No, not speech. One act play contest for decades. That was Martin Carter.
Martin Carter was the driving force behind that. Okay.
Yep, and that was like a thing, and it was fun. It was fun to cover, and the kids were always so excited, and they kept up the tradition really well.
Good. How about like any crazy weather events or anything like that stick out in your mind?
Well, we had not that long. Well, in the 2000s, we had a tornado, and the big. We'd had maybe a couple small tornadoes, but we always thought of ourselves as tornado proof.
Yeah.
But we had that fairly significant tornado.
Is that the one that was out kind of west of town a little ways? Because I know there's
south north. It did made quite a run.
Where did it touch down? And
there was a turkey farm south. Quite a ways south, that got just demolished, and the turkeys were dead all over.
Oh no!
And it went up as far as Pickerel Lake, north of
it's on 4, right?
like Lake Emma, or Emmaville. It was something, and it kind of skipped around.
Yeah.
So I got to go up in a helicopter and look at it from the air.
Oh, that's cool.
Take photos, and that was cool.
So there's gonna be some aerial photos of that somewhere. I would imagine, right?
I took some. Yeah.
The photo archive of the Enterprise. Have they? Are there ever any requests from the Historical Society and things like that?
Well, all the old bound volumes. So we had bound volumes from the 1800s, and they're all now at the Historical Society Museum.
Yep.
They're not very accessible, and in fact, they had gotten the old ones, especially, were so fragile that we started not really letting people go through them. Plus, people would damage them. So, but they were all there. I don't even know if they're still having them bound or not. Yeah. But
I wonder if they're going to have them digitized or anything like that.
No, we talked. I mean, that was a thing we talked about. But there were a couple newspapers in the state that had volunteers digitizing. But that would just be, the pages are so, they were way bigger.
The newspapers themselves?
Oh yeah, huge.
Yeah.
Pages back then, and to digitize all that, I couldn't even wrap my head around the kind of.
When was the newspaper actually founded?
Well, the Enterprise was
so is it the 1800s?
Oh yeah.
Oh
yeah. They went back to the, I want to say 1880s, or for sure the 90s. Yeah. Oh, and they were so fun to look. They're so fun to look at. They are priceless.
Really? Yeah. What kind of stuff is in there?
Oh, well, a lot of, county, city, just like now. I mean, reports on what.
Let's just think this is the time of like horse-drawn carriages and things like that.
Yeah, actually, plus the neighborly news, So
Probably still see a lot of names in those papers that you could recognize from
absolutely.
today too, right?
Oh, absolutely, you could.
We just had Daryl Hensel in here
Oh,
the other,
sure.
and talking about some of the families and stuff that came in the 1800s and stuff,
Yes.
and there's quite a few of them that are still
They're
here.
still here.
Yeah.
Yeah, they are.
So, what do you think? What do you think is valuable about having a newspaper like the Enterprise in a town like this? Like in today, let's just fast forward now to today, and what's the value of the Enterprise? Or like, why would a person benefit from subscribing to it?
Well, local newspapers are keep people connected and are a reliable source of information and to know what's happening in your community. I think local journalism is really important. And not to say this would happen locally, but if you don't have a newspaper, the temptation for public officials to try to get away with stuff is probably multiplied by
So
pretty
journalism,
significant number.
it has that watchdog function too, doesn't
does.
it? Yeah.
It absolutely does.
Yeah, there are like so many different. I mean, when you think of it, you think, oh, that journalism means writing things down, but it actually serves a very important civic function.
Yes, it does. Yeah, absolutely.
Now, let's shift over to the arts scene here in Park Rapids. So the Heartland Arts, is it a council or what?
Yes.
So,
Heartland. We were the Park Rapids Lakes Area Arts Council,
okay,
and when the branding
that's PERLAC, right? Or,
yes,
yeah, it used
right,
to be called PERLAC.
right, yes. And when the branding was going on to Heartland Lakes Area, we decided to be the Heartland Arts Council.
So no lakes, just Heartland Arts.
Yeah, just Heartland Arts.
Okay.
And
yeah. Is it a what? So what is it? Is it a nonprofit or what?
Yes.
Okay.
Nonprofit, and we started in 2005. We had an arts council actually in Park Rapids before, and it kind of went away, and so we started over, and it's meant to be an umbrella group for all the arts organizations. And we have, actually, I think I just counted 20, we have 20 arts organizations that are part of the Arts Council.
Oh, wow.
We don't always have 20 people at a meeting,
Yeah.
but they're members. And we try, one big thing that we try to do is coordinate our calendars so we don't step on each other's events.
Okay.
Which is not a small thing.
Right.
But we try to come up with new ideas and projects that we can do. But one of our roles has just been to help promote everybody's arts events and activities. We do that with our website and our Facebook page.
And do you also advise the city council and the county board on arts related issues as well? Or
no, the city has an Arts and Culture Advisory Commission, which is a whole separate thing.
Okay.
Some of us are on both, which is fine. We report to the Arts Council. At Arts Council meetings, we report about what the Arts and Culture Commission has been doing.
Okay.
Yeah.
So there's quite a bit of
overlap there, but the focus of the Arts and Culture Commission, of course, is just on the city. And
sure.
City.
Like the putting sculptures in the downtown
that's our
area.
most visible project is the sculpture trail. Yeah, absolutely.
So the sculpture trail, it starts downtown, or where is there a start and finish to it?
In Redbridge Park.
Yep.
And then after a couple of years, we extended it downtown.
Okay, so now you kind of see, like, I remember they had something similar to that up in Bemidji. I remember seeing that.
Right. Oh, sure, yeah.
And then now we see it here in Park Rapids.
Right.
So, and then these statues that get placed, are like, how does it work? Are they put there by on loan from the artist, or are they for sale, or how
they're
does
on loan? They're always for sale.
Yeah. Okay.
But they're on loan. Yes, we have an agreement. I mean, it's a city, right? So there's a lot of paperwork involved, but we have an agreement with the artist on when they're to be placed and when they're to be removed, and that they're on loan, and that we can take pictures of them, and down to that. I mean, it's a pretty, a formal process, but we have so far we've always had more sculpture entries than we have spots for, and we have as many spots as we have sponsors for, and the only grant money we ever got for that project was to add the lighting in the park, because we were experiencing some vandalism, and adding lighting
Is that right?
really helped.
Okay. Yeah.
And so we did get a grant for that, but otherwise we asked businesses and nonprofits to sponsor, and then currently that costs $550, but $500 of that goes to the artist.
Mm-hmm. Oh, okay. All right. So there's something in it for them too.
Yes. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
And then they are for sale. So if you're walking down in Redbridge Park, you see one. Hey, Jeff, isn't there like a giant mosquito down there or something like? I remember
there's a dragonfly.
Dragonfly. Yeah. Okay. I know there was something like that.
So much prettier than a mosquito.
And there was another one, like a dog or
There's
something.
There's a dog.
That's
this year.
So people look at that and say, I would make a great addition to my own landscaping.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Who would they contact for that?
Well, the artist. Mm-hmm. But we have, there's a description, the artist's contact information and everything on the Arts Council's website, because the city's website just wasn't up to handling all that.
Yeah.
And so the Arts Council has all the sculpture trail information.
Okay.
So, but yeah. So
it's like kind of like a joint like ownership between Heartland Arts Council and the city.
Well, the Arts Council just hosts the website. It's a real. Okay. It's a city project.
It's a city project.
It's a city project. Yeah.
Okay. So you said there's like 20 different organizations that are represented on the council and things like that. So I mean I guess that's quite a few. So I mean, what are some of the other big events in the arts here in Park Rapids, or projects that are in place?
Well, we did last year. We added a third mural downtown.
Yep,
that was a Arts Council grant.
That's the Scandinavian one there. Yeah, that's. I think that one's really sharp. I told you that.
Yeah,
I really like that one. Yeah,
yeah, and the building owner initiated the idea of he wanted a mural on that side of the building, and paid for some building repairs and things to make it work. What was I going to say about that? And then we had a committee that went through a process of kind of deciding what we want to do. I mean, what kind of mural we wanted it to be. And actually, the building owner is the one who came up with the theme, and the theme that we gave artists, and they're so creative, they could come up with beautiful ways to represent, but the theme was to show the joy the community finds in music and the arts.
Oh.
And if you look at that mural, you can pick out all the ways that different arts are represented.
You could go so many different ways with that.
You could, yeah. And that's what our artists came up with.
I'm sure the artist appreciated that, the creativity, that was given, or the freedom. So, okay, we have a little time left. Let's talk about the Downtown Business Association and the downtown businesses in general. So you are the program coordinator for the Downtown Business Association. What is the Downtown Business Association, and what does the program coordinator do?
Well, the Downtown Business Association is a membership-driven organization. We also have a nonprofit status. We work closely with the chamber. So what we've always discussed is it's the chamber's job to get people to come to Park Rapids, and it's our job to get them to come downtown.
Okay. All right. Okay.
And then it's the business's job to get them to buy something.
Okay. So they have to close the deal.
Yeah, they have to. Right.
Yeah,
exactly.
Okay. So it's sort of like a wide funnel, and then you guys are sort of narrowing it down a little bit, and then ultimately it's up to them to make their own fortune.
Exactly.
Okay.
So that with the pooled funds that they are able to come up with, we pay for the street decor, which includes the flower baskets and their maintenance all summer.
Yep.
And then in the fall, we have fall decor. We have hay bales and corn stalks, and in the winter we do the live wreaths.
Yep. Which
I think are so much prettier than the kind you buy and hang on a
absolutely
post. So
the tree too, probably, right?
No, the tree is we work with the chamber on the tree and tree lighting and all that, and St. Joseph's, CHI St. Joseph's, because it's a fundraiser for hospice. Ultimately, the tree lighting and all that, but we play a role in that. And then we do events. We started doing the Easter time event where kids come downtown and collect eggs with candy in them and have their picture taken with the Easter bunny.
Okay.
And we do Crazy Days.
Yeah.
And we do Second Street Stage.
Right, that's a big one.
That is a big one. It started out, this will be our 12th summer for Second Street Stage. And for quite a few years, the businesses kind of subsidized the whole thing. But now we've turned the corner, and now the profits the profits from Second Street Stage are used to subsidize the Downtown Business Association budget.
Oh, good. Yeah.
So we wouldn't be able to.
Is that just from sales and things like that? I mean, like
beer sales.
Yeah.
It's mostly from the
beer.
Well,
you said, I didn't mean to be crass, right? I just called it sales.
It's from the beer.
Okay. All right.
Because we have a lot of sponsors. Basically, the sponsorships pay for the bands.
Yeah. Okay.
And then the beer sales profits.
That's what subsidizes the budget,
that helps us pay for things we want to do.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So, what are the geographic boundaries of the downtown area then?
Well,
like where would you say that if a person wanted to be in the Downtown Business Association and you said, "No, I'm sorry, you live a little ways too far out."
Well, Delahunt Media
are they part of it?
Are part of it. Sure.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, we have. So, we have some significant partners, and the chamber, of course. But we have members who aren't downtown.
Yeah.
That's Swickle Ace Hardware Store is a member, for example.
Okay.
So whoever
just
wants to support our wonderful business district downtown.
What has the turnover been like over the years for the downtown businesses?
It's pretty significant turnover, and I think that's true with all small business.
Yeah.
I've seen and read. So it's probably the same. Small businesses of any kind. Yeah. But retail is tough.
Yeah.
And we are still, in spite of all the wonderful things that have happened, we are still a pretty seasonal economy.
Yeah, that's true.
Even with fabulous year-round jobs, which we have so many more now than we used to have in the 70s and 80s and even the 90s, we still we're still a seasonal economy.
Yeah, yeah.
So it's tough. It's not easy.
I want to ask you a little bit more about that, as kind of for the final set of questions I had here. But when it comes to the downtown businesses, you've been involved for several years and kind of noticed certain trends and things like that. Are there any trends that you see, and answer this as diplomatically as you see fit, but are there any sort of trends that you see that are common to businesses that succeed downtown, or and on the flip side of that coin, are there any trends that you see that are common to businesses that do not succeed?
I think it's about customer service. That's what you may not have. Price, you may not be able. I mean, you can't maybe compete with a chain store, but you can offer customer service, and that's priceless.
Yeah,
it's just priceless. So that would be what small businesses, what makes them succeed, and could be what makes them fail.
Yeah, the lack thereof. You mean?
Yeah, there can be other factors, but certainly customer service is what small towns can really grab onto. And
so here's a debate I have with my friends is number one, can Park Rapids support another restaurant, and two, if it could, what kind of restaurant would that be?
You want me to answer that?
I want you to answer that. Yeah.
Well, I've heard that there's someone interested in putting in a pizza place, but not a chain pizza restaurant, just a
like a pizza. Rockies,
sort of like like that, but downtown.
Oh,
and I think that might work. Although it would be a seasonal.
Yeah,
I mean, more successful in the summer months than in the winter for sure. Otherwise, I'm not good at figuring out what people want nowadays.
No.
That what they say is younger generations are looking for experiences, not stuff.
What does that mean?
So experiences would be in my head like Monica's Quilt and Yarn Shop.
Yeah.
They offer classes. And that's obviously one reason they have been so successful. They people who have the time.
Sure. Which are
especially a lot of our retired around. People here.
Yes.
So they do have time, and especially during COVID, they were, they were able to offer classes, and I think I know they still do that, and. And so that's and like Beagle and Wolf Books, they have author events.
Yep.
So those are experiences, and when a business can figure out how to offer an experience and now several places in downtown offer music. They have musicians come and play, or they have event nights when they do different things, and those are experiences, and I think that's important. If you can figure out a way to work that into your business, I think that will help them succeed.
Yeah, okay. Are there any businesses or business types that are missing from Park Rapids? I know I mentioned restaurants, but I mean, just in general, if you could say, what Park Rapids needs is it needs a blank, what would you say?
Oh, it's a hard one, because I'm of the age where I'm not a shopper anymore. A lot of my stuff goes to barely used. Trying to thin. Gosh. I'd be really hard pressed to say. Oh, I know. People seriously miss the Minnesota fountain, and that old-fashioned soda fountain experience.
Yeah, right.
And that is sorely missed.
Yeah, and that just kind of closed down because I mean, we don't know why it closed down, but it's no longer operating.
Correct. It's for sale. Yeah.
It's for sale, and so it could be reopened sort of as is as a
it
soda
could.
fountain.
I think it'd be very successful, and especially if it used to be. And I think now that our theater has really come, how would I say, alive again with new owners and new ideas.
Oh, the movie theater, yeah.
The movie theater. Because the thing used to be to go to the theater and then go to Minnesota Fountain and have a sundae or whatever. And I think people would still be up for that.
Yeah.
If it was a place that was open in the evening and
Before and after.
Yeah.
Or, you know.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Okay, so I think you touched on this a little bit before, that, you know, the future of the area, right? Sort of where you see things. You know, a lot has changed. You know, I think that you marked, you know, one watershed moment when they, you know, brought in the irrigation and the potato plant and all that was a big moment in the history of Park Rapids. I also think you touched on the COVID issue with the downtown business, probably had a negative effect on that. But I also think there was another sort of side effect to the whole COVID deal, which is that it caused a lot of people to understand working remotely.
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, absolutely impacted the court system. I mean, we're still doing remote court to this day.
Oh, my.
Yeah, for just about every hearing, everything is on Zoom.
Wow.
Yeah, I don't have to drive. I mean, I bought a second car just before COVID occurred because I drive a big truck, and I bought another car to be fuel so I wasn't spending as much money on gas. And I thought, well, the mileage reimbursements will probably pay for the car, the lease payment. I had leased it. And then COVID hit. So, but here's the thing. I mean, I was going to, Walker, Bemidji once.
Bagley.
Yeah, Bagley, probably, once or twice a week. Whereas now everything is on Zoom, right?
Oh.
But I think that it wasn't just the law. I think it occurred in so many companies. Like my brother works for Securian down in the Twin Cities. And even though he lives down there, he telecommutes, or he works from home. I think 4 out of 5 days of the week he's only required to go into the office once. And I think some companies are just like working on a model of everybody can do that, and it cuts down on real estate overhead, and all kinds of things can occur because of that. But it really sort of unchains people to kind of, move and live wherever they want to live. So that if you work at 3M, maybe you could, reside in Nevis.
Sure.
So, given that, I think that we're seeing different kinds of populations of people that are coming into the area, and also just different populations of people that come in to work at the plant and things of that nature. Do you see Park Rapids growing in population as a sort of a steady thing, or do you think that we're due to have a big jump, or what are your thoughts on the growth of the community in general?
As you say, I think we've gained a lot of population and a interestingly wonderful, diverse population. When people figured out they could live here and maybe go to the cities once a month for a meeting.
Yeah, right. Yeah,
it's pretty obvious that that's happening.
Mm-hmm.
If you talk to the people at the post office, they will tell you how many mailboxes have been added. You've talked to Itasca Mantrap, how many new hookups there have been.
Mm-hmm. I guess those would be sort of the metrics, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So I think we can continue to grow, but housing is an issue. It has been for a long time, and I know it's being worked on, and we're adding housing, but because there seem to be always more jobs than people, and that's probably because they can't find a place to live.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, and affordable housing too, of course, but both kinds. I mean, all kinds. I know people who have pretty good income that just haven't been able to find a place to live here. So
Yeah, and I think for a while too, there had been the high cost of construction materials kind of put a limit on the amount of new construction. But I understand that those have come down.
They have come down.
So,
Yeah, I've been. Yeah,
it'll be a good time to be a builder.
Oh yeah, I think they've all been. Yeah. If you want construction done in the summer, I think you should line it up a year and a half ahead.
I think you're right. Yeah. Okay. Well, we're getting close to the end of the time here, LuAnn. So I'm just going to ask you the same sort of question I asked everybody else. You probably know what it is. You have any advice for young people?
Probably the advice I gave to my own children. Education is important. So do your best in school. Leave Park Rapids for a while. You need to see there's a way bigger world outside, but if you are able to make a living here, be wonderful to move back. And you see that happen pretty often, that people they leave, they come back, and they're very happy here. They're raising their families here, and it works really well. So, but expand your boundaries, expand your horizon beyond here, and get to know the world a little bit. But then you're always welcome to come back.
Yep. Okay, well, that's very sound advice, LuAnn. And I think at least the first part dovetails with my advice, which is join the Rotary Club.
Oh, there you go. Oh, and that too. Yeah, absolutely.
All right. LuAnn Hurd-Lof, thank you for coming in today. It's been a pleasure. And we'll see you around town.
All right.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.